Welcome to our new joiners, and always happy to see regular attendees. I'm Gina Kozak. I'm an ODF board member, and I am coordinating the series of tech talks. This is the second of three. As Tanya mentioned, they're all recorded, and you'll be able to find them on our website. So we've got this one today, and we've got another one November 1st. And the purpose of these is to introduce you to technology partners working in the organization design space. The format is they're going to go through a basic overview of the product and an actual use case of how you can apply it to a design project. And then they're going to talk about ROI, business case, being able to bring tools into the space. And so the format that we'd like to follow is obviously we have a Q&A at the end. And what we'll be doing as we go through this is I'll turn this over to our friends at Nakisa, and then I will be monitoring the chat, and then I will pause here and there when we get a few questions in so that they can answer questions as they work through the presentation. So with that, won't take any more time. Turn it over to Philip to get us started.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, everyone, for joining, taking the time to invest in listening a little bit about how tech can support you in your OD practice. I'm thrilled to be here personally. I will introduce my colleague in just a moment. And a special hello to those who were at the actual conference or the last conference in May in St. Paul, Minnesota. We had a tech panel at that moment, and it was really great for me to be able to interact with you around org design as a discipline and what value it brings to the organizations we get to work with, but also how tech can support it. So as I said then, and I'll say it now, tech is your friend, and only will augment your capacity to deliver org design projects to the organizations you work with. So super happy to be here. We'll dive right in, and we're actually going to do a demo of the Nakisa solution at some point, and it's so much fun to do that. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly and get through some intro slides, and then turn it over to my colleague Sebastian Boss, who you will meet today. So we get going. So the agenda for today. And then Gina, you're keeping me honest on questions or any kind of comments that come in. Thank you. So who are we? Nakisa, we're not we're a smaller company, but have been in this space as pioneers, honestly, for a long time. So I'd love to introduce you to us. Looking at organization design software, what it looks like today. As well as then doing a bit of a use case demo of that solution, because it's sometimes hard to visualize exactly what you can do with some of these tools that are out there in the market. We're not the only one, of course. And then we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of using org design solutions. And this has always been a challenge for me, and we're getting better and better at kind of explaining what are the business benefits we actually get out of using org design solutions, but more so, what are the benefits of org design itself? And when we chatted in St. Paul, that was kind of a topic, is how do we get better at justifying what org design actually brings to an organization? If you're on this call, or if you're a member of the ODF, you believe it in your heart of hearts that putting the right talent in the right place at the right time generates tremendous business benefits for any organization that we get to work with. But then you also have to convince people afterwards to invest in that project or to invest in that initiative. So thankful to be among friends who believe that, and we're glad to show you how technology might support you in that mission. So I'm Phil Houghton. We work for Nakisa, Seb and I. My role is business development, so it's really understanding what are the business ambitions of the organizations we work with, and how can our solution help them achieve those business ambitions through talent optimization, reorganizing the structure a little bit, or just fine-tuning the talent allocation in the organization. very quickly, I come from a consulting background, so I know there are a lot of people here who are services providers to their organization around OD and have been for some time. So I come from that world as well. I'm very thankful to have a tool now that helps me do that. I'll turn it over to Seb to introduce himself as well.
Yes, so I'm Sebastian, also known as Seb, referred to as Seb. So I am the director of the HR product, so the product that is being showcased, or the set of products that are being showcased today. I've been with Nakisa for a considerable amount of time, always within the HR space. I started my journey early on working with customers on the talent side and training, and have grown with Nakisa in terms of the product growth over the 20-year span. Early on, had the pleasure of working with a lot of our customers on premise in that journey, and having those discussions with the talented HR folks, as well as org design specialists, trying to understand their needs and their business challenges and trying to bridge that gap. Have been recently transitioned over to the product side and really trying to bridge that gap between technology and the use cases that our customers need the product for. So passing it along back to Phil on who is Nakisa.
Thank you, Seb. So who are we? We're a private company officially based in Canada. I sit in Montreal. Sebastian sits in Montreal as well. We've had a vision of providing HR data analytics and people analytics for a long time. We were pioneers, as Seb said, in putting org charts on corporate intranets. That's kind of how we got started. We're fully cloud solution, therefore fully enclosed in the cloud, like many of the subscription-based solutions that you use in your day-to-day for all kinds of reasons. That's us as well, which brings a lot of advantages, especially on HR data privacy and scalability of the solution. It's about 300 of us. We have folks in the US, we have folks in Europe as well, and further east. And we're fully secure, which is a major issue with a lot of the customers that we get to work with on the HR data, on the transparency of that data, but also constraining who gets to see what in terms of personal information. So very proud of that history. We have a couple of other lines of business that I just mentioned in passing here. One is, and we'll just show a chart in a second. One is really around, so we're workforce of the future on this, what we call, on the top left of this particular chart, the workforce planning portfolio. We call it workforce planning, but it includes and starts with organization design. So you're going to hear both terms a little bit interchangeably today as we demo, but our product is really a workforce planning portfolio that starts with two things, really. What is the as is, or the supply side of the talent in an organization? So that's all the org charts and the analytics and the reporting that you might do out of a solution. Then it's simulating organization design situations to your heart's content that then allows you to plan out the workforce of the future. So that's basically how our solution works. We also have, for your information, an IWMS, which is Integrated Workplace Management System, because for the foreseeable future, no matter if you build, buy, or develop any kind of talent in an organization, they need to be attached to a physical workplace. And so we have solutions that allow the organizations to manage those workplaces and the leases that you might have if you don't own that particular workplace. And then we also have an accounting solution and administration solution for leases for property, plant, and equipment that we call our accounting product. All this is built in the cloud, and any solution that you're going to contemplate should be in the cloud at this point. So that's it. So that's a little bit about us. Very proud to support organizations in all kinds of different industries. They tend to be larger for a couple of reasons, and as you OD practitioners know well, the business value we can bring is really kind of augmented when there are large sample sizes of employees moving around, although we can do it day to day, and sometimes it's tweaking the allocation of talent across the structure or tweaking the structure itself with an additional person here or there. But for the most part, when there are big transactions or big moves that are being made, tech is your friend here, and all the organizations that are represented on this particular slide espouse those objectives to really optimize talent across the organization. They're not all clients of the workforce planning solution or OD solution that you're about to see. Some are clients of the financial suite that we just talked about. So they're believers in what we believe in terms of org design and business value in optimizing talent and distributing talent in the best way possible across the organization.
So what we wanted to do now is really kind of look at what does that next gen organization design software look like, and we're on that journey in terms of Nakisa. As Phil mentioned, we've been in this space for a considerable amount of time now, over 20 years. We've seen, software come and go, and we've tried to adapt as well based on our customers' needs. One of the key things that I wanted to kind of address that, when you're looking for any workforce planning and organizational design solution, the must-haves really need to be the integrated capabilities. So I've just listed here just for, education purposes, but really our focus here is when speaking around org design solution in the market, the key elements that allow organizations to be successful with an org design project, is really the items listed here. However, when we're talking about large enterprise organizations in the tens of thousands, is which we cater to typically, so we're really in that enterprise space. There are a few things that really are critical. Of course, having access to that baseline data, being able to understand the current and ease of use of the data analysis tools to understand all of that, whether it's a graphical or org charts or other, and the ability to support any scenario planning, to do that what-if analysis, not just once, one time, but multiple iterations, trying to figure out what's the best outcome. But what we've seen more and more now, and this is where it ties into the whole workforce planning piece, is that integration into the strategic planning, whether that's at the upfront or post. It's really to allow that joining of whether it's as simple as headcount planning or more higher level strategic planning integration to understand, to make sure that you've got the right, not just the organizational health structure, but the right people in the right place, the right team setup. And of course, all of this through collaboration with the various stakeholders that are engaged in any major changes, whether small or large, and allow for that flexible governance and workflow throughout. So regardless of the type of tool that you're utilizing or want to utilize, especially in the enterprise space, this is what we kind of see as the must-haves when you're looking at any solution out there in the market. So one thing that we've kind of noticed is that, and this is with our research and working with Gartner, and we had the opportunity to spend a considerable amount of time with Gartner, is workforce planning is really a spectrum. It's anywhere from managing schedules, capacity, daily activities, to strategic long-term planning, to trying to find the right skills and capacity, to achieve the goal and mission. But of course, making sure that you have that right structure in place to achieve all of this, being foundational. So that spectrum is really anywhere as previous definition. On the left-hand side, you've got your workforce optimization and scheduling. But then on the right-hand side, you've got that operational workforce planning, the day-to-day projects, making sure that you've got the right people in your team as managers. Then the org modeling and the transformation. And this is where probably the focus of the audience members of here today, making sure that you have aligned the resources to that new organizational structure for any significant transformation. And then, of course, the strategic side, which is ensuring that you've got the skills, either short-term or long-term, and that align for that. So where Nakisa's sweet spot is really there, which is highlighted here on the right-hand side, and that's really our key focus. And we've done this by breaking it down into what Phil mentioned earlier on in terms of broken it down by 3 different suites of products. So we offer this portfolio end-to-end that allows you to interact end-to-end, but with key insights. So on the org chart suite, you've got your visualization, understanding the current structure, whether it's a formal structure or informal structure, providing that compliance reporting, the analytics and insights, are my spans of control in a healthy position, etc. And then, of course, the modeling side or the what if scenarios on the org design suite, which is really allowing you to either do a bottom-up approach, allowing managers to provide insights. So on the operational org design, more tactical, or from a strategic aspect, understanding the current strategic needs of the organization. Do we have the right structure in place from the top-down approach in terms of that? Tying that in naturally with headcount planning, whether it's the annual process or multi-year process, and with, of course, understanding what are those skill gaps within the organization around that, and being able to understand and define and play around with different, again, what if scenarios. This is not just a one-time practice, but allowing you to do multiple iterations. And this is where we've seen the tie between all 3 aspects, especially for org design specialists and upper key executives. They are involved and they want to see information or do what if analysis based on these various 2, the org design, as well as the headcount planning aspect. All of this, of course, sits on top of a structured data model, allowing that for the integration into the ERPs that our large customer base utilize, rather than building everything from scratch and running around with Excels and trying to get data uploaded into systems. We have the ability to connect to the existing systems in terms of that. So diving rather than collecting all the data, we have the ability to actually go and start doing those what if analyses. Naturally, whoops, just missed one screen. One of the key things is who utilizes our solutions. You may relate to some of these individuals. I think most of you probably relate to Oscar being the first one in terms of the org design expert, so to speak, driving most of the conversations within the organization. However, one key thing that we've kind of noticed is that a lot of collaboration and information is needed from other players within the organization. And as long as you've got that integration and ability to talk, not just through emails and team chats or Zooms, but even within the application, share particular scenarios, have discussions on why you want to make key changes, have that workflow process, and as well the technical integration, that all benefits our end users. So as a product person, these are the type of individuals that we cater to from a product standpoint. You've got Patricia, who's a people manager. She will give her input in terms of what she needs within her organization, whether she's a VP or just a people manager at running a group of a team, so to speak. Of course, she'd work in conjunction with Hilda on the HR side to make sure that, we're meeting the right criterias. And of course, getting that strategic direction from Carla in terms of overall. And of course, this being overviewed by Oscar from an org design center of excellence perspective.
And heading into the demo, the open cloud platform is what, just to make this very clear, assures that it works with any kind of HRIS, Workday or Oracle. That is the architecture that enables that, right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question, and definitely allows us to integrate with all the ERPs. And we do know that garbage in, garbage out from a data perspective, there's always those challenges with large organizations. But this is where, as long as the data is visible, it also helps correct that data as you enter projects in terms of that. So before actually going into the demo, I just wanted to give the opportunity for Phil to kind of walk us through, where our solution gets utilized in various areas. So Phil?
Yeah, just context setting super quick for all of us org design practitioners. This is how we kind of see it. We know there are business events that are on the left side of this particular chart that kind of trigger an OD project. It could be anything from a reorganization at the leadership level, because no leader is going to come in and say, hey, the structure is perfect, let's leave it as is. They're always going to insist on a bit of a rejigging of how talent is distributed in the organization. It could be an implementation of other solutions, ERPs, that change how people approach their work. It could be a merger and acquisition, which is my own personal background. So that kind of triggers the OD project. And then we go through a process that I think we're all familiar with, which is, what are we trying to achieve with this reorg or this OD project? So that's defining the vision. We also do an inventory of what we have in terms of talent. So that's the current state of the talent in the organization, which is the supply side within the phase one. Then you kind of go, okay, how are we going to close the gap about what we between what we want and what we have today? So that's the plan, the transition. There's often a galvanizing event or a day one, or there's the transaction gets consummated, and so things happen before that are kind of visionary and on the planning side, but then the financial part takes over, and then now you have to actually deliver the synergies that you promised to your shareholders or to the exec. And so that goes into the deliver phase, which is where workforce planning comes in. And it's the speed to getting to those organizational synergies in the context of big transactions that is really important. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that process that I think we all live and breathe on a regular basis, and just highlight in light blue some of the activities that could be augmented by technology. The last thing I'm going to mention, just by way of context before Seb jumps into the demo itself, is this box on other advisory services. So we don't do this in a vacuum. We often have to work with bankers, financial people, IT people to integrate the HR data and make that transition as smooth as possible, with experts that are outside of the organization in a lot of cases. So let's be aware that part of our role as OD practitioners is collaborating with some of these additional advisors and support people through the journey of org design.
So just moving things along from the main use cases for the org design software. I mean, we've covered some of these before, leaving them for reflection later on in terms of the slides that will be shared. But really the org chart is there to visualize the current structure, get that baseline, get that real insights, and gain that holistic overview. The org design is that what if scenario, either from an operational org design, which I'll be showcasing, or the strategic org design, a more structured flow in terms of, there's a area of responsibility for various individuals and their various goals, whether it's for a reduction in force exercise and M&A, etc. and understanding the impacts of those changes and visualizing it through analytics. And the headcount is really more, rather than looking at the structure, it's more looking at, okay, how many bodies do I need in those particular jobs, areas, regions, business units, cost centers, which will sometimes trigger the operational or strategic org design aspect, or vice versa, as mentioned before. So kind of a demo scenario of what I will be showcasing. And in terms of, I'm going to be looking at Carla, who's managing a headcount planning process. She's looking at a global plan overall, and she's delegating sub-plans to various individuals like Patricia. Patricia is then going to take a look at the current organization structure and the key metrics and analytics, and try to understand what her business looks like today. And then allowing her to basically go ahead and add and remove headcount plans. And of course, Hilda being involved from a review perspective. And then finally, reorganizing the organization based on that. What I'll be doing is I'll be kind of doing this in one shot, just for time purposes. This is typically a demo that we give to our customers for an hour, but we're going to kind of shorten this into a 15-minute demo. So I won't be logging in and logging out every single time. I'll be going in as a super user, but I'll be showcasing the headcount planning, the organizational chart, and of course our org design suite capabilities through that. So jumping ahead into the headcount planning solution itself, which I'm just bringing up on the screen. I'm just going to make sure that I wasn't logged out inadvertently due to refreshing my screen here, just to make sure. So I've logged into a headcount. This is a headcount planning that I've created for the year. As you kind of see up here, we've set overall targets and budget information, as well as what the plan is in terms from a description and its objectives, and also what dimensions I want to analyze this information and this headcount plan by. This could be by jobs, this could be by capabilities, department, divisions, country, business unit, cost center, etc., or even skills, looking and trying to analyze that from those various angles. I've gone ahead and made already changes in the headcount plan, and actually delegated the sub-plan out to 3 individuals from that aspect. So you see Oscar is an owner for the finance department, Sharif, an org design specialist, is taking care of the R&D, and myself, I'll be reorging the VP of sales organization. Jumping into the finance side, here you can kind of see the sub details of the plan, where numbers are basically gone up and down in terms of the actual values, and you can basically analyze what the impacts to my actual changes are. If I were to actually go into the actual planning, this is where looking at everything by job and job family categorized this way, where I'm able then to simply go ahead and say, okay, I need to add 1 more payroll specialist in January due to changes within the organization. The salary for this individual, the average salary for this team is around 7.2, but of course, I think that's probably unrealistic. I need to increase that up to 13K due to changes, and therefore all the calculations change based on that, allowing you to basically have that, first of all, that financial aspect and understanding of what the impacts are in terms of costs and variables. But it's important to understand that you can basically look at this from various different angles in terms of that. Okay. Now, of course, all of this happens in the fact that you are collaborating with multiple individuals, and there's other approvers that are involved in this. So naturally, as you're making these changes and you're requesting that these changes be approved, you're involving the right people through that process, including a discussion that you could be having with multiple individuals through that process. Now, from a review standpoint, what gets interesting is I can look at all the combined changes overall that are happening and see the overall impact. But I can see this impact based on job family in terms of these are the job families that will be impacted by this. Is this going to create an org health issue or challenge within the organization? So this is where we kind of think that the strategic part and that element should be involved from a headcount planning is not just from a structural standpoint, but even from this headcount planning process, this annual process that you guys get involved in on a regular basis. And of course, the analysis could be done at a job level, job family, functional area, and a particular country or region, how this actually impacts. And you can do the slice and dicing based on that. And naturally, understanding the overview in terms of graphs and the impacts in terms of, okay, from a department standpoint, where this is going to increase 46 positions and decrease 20 positions over the period of the 12 months. And how does that impact financially as well? This could all be analyzed through that.
Do you have the ability to add another dimension besides financial, for example, a critical role or a critical capability, because it's not all equal?
Correct. And definitely the dimensions could be added in terms of that piece. So here, in terms of right now, the dimensions are just by this aspect, but definitely you could filter out in terms of what are the critical roles. In terms of what we'll be looking on later on is even the ability to filter out aging population, should that be an impact, etc. So just wanted to kind of highlight in terms of headcount planning, because this is a thought process that is not typically looked at from an org design perspective. And we find it, quite important to bring into part of that discussion in terms of that, because typically the headcount planning is done outside of the org design piece sometimes from that aspect. Tying that into the actual, so going back to my scenario, I'm just going to bring that back. So we kind of looked at in terms of reviewing the global plan, adding, removing, collaborating with HR. I did not click the submit right now, but pretty much, the ability to have that collaboration with the various stakeholders. You're not just doing it in silo, your single spreadsheets that typically get sent out in organizations, but you're actually collaborating in an online tool to facilitate that process. So now we're going to go in and look at Patricia. And at the same time, we're also going to do that little scenario in terms of drag and drop capabilities and analyze your key individuals. So I'm going to bring up here on the screen my organization chart suite, where I'm looking at the current as is. So I've zoomed in terms of the org chart itself. Of course, you can go ahead and navigate down the organization chart. It expands. You can navigate as many layers as you want in terms of understanding the current as is. And this is, as you mentioned, Gina, this is the data that you're getting out of the ERP that allows us to, visualize this information that the organization already maintains. And allowing you, of course, and allowing the organization, either as a manager, an employee, or an HR or design specialist, to look at the various angles of the organization and do that slice and dice filtering that I'll showcase in a second. So here, let's say that I actually wanted to look at the organization, and I wanted to understand what is the overall span of control of this part of the organization, the top part of the organization. On the left-hand side, I've got the ability to basically pull in additional information as I wanted to see here. Or I can go ahead to predefine views. And let's say that I've got here all the employee analytics, pulling up a lot of information suddenly on the screen where you're seeing the total headcount, the span of control, the total salary, the number, which layer this part of the organization is, what is the average salary, average tenure. So these analytics all can be configured and added, and you can basically select, depending on the type of action that you are doing or process that you're trying to support the organization through, you can slice and dice and look at that information. I can even go ahead and filter and say, okay, I want to understand in a particular part of the organization, and I'm just going to go here down to the region, and I wanted to understand in the Americas, what is my total headcount for Americas, and how does this change in terms of the analytics? So you've noticed that the actual analytics have suddenly decreased. This is a filtered view just for the Americas. I can understand where that part of the organization is within, and what are the impacts in terms of that. Of course, all of this is to understand the baseline, to then take this information and basically start making modifications and do those what-if analysis and scenarios. I have the ability not only to view the information, I'm just going to remove the filter here, reset the filter, and change the view. If, let's say that I'm doing an organizational change and I want to understand more, what are the position impacts to this? I want to take the people out of the conversation. You also have the ability naturally to understand and just narrow in and focus on the actual positions here and their location, where the positions sit, and the headcount and the impacts to that. So it really...
Sorry, is this where we would build in kind of other sort of HR type things like retention goals, and maybe sometimes they have a goal for hiring a certain number of interns and things like that? Is this where we would build that in and view it?
You could definitely add that in terms of that aspect. One key thing before...
Oh,
go ahead,
sorry,
Phil.
Seb, I'll just add one thing maybe to Gina's point. We keep talking about pulling data from the HRIS system, but you should expect from a solution that's going to help you do or design to be able to pull from other sources as well and kind of consolidate data. So, you know, information that could be sitting in Excel around inclusion and diversity, or sitting in some other best of breed system for whatever purpose it is, that all informs the org design you're trying to do through solution. So ask about that as well. Yeah,
definitely. And this is where you're not just looking at the current state. We do have the ability to look at the future state and the past state. So it's always interesting to look at how was the organization a year ago versus what are the upcoming new hires that you already have in the system, and looking at those as well. So we have that ability to look at a point in time in the past and the future, naturally only if the data is there. What I have here on the screen before going into an actual what-if scenario is to actually look at more a summary view of the organization chart with key analytics. Again, you have the ability to hide and show information as you see fit. So if I don't need to see the employee names and the employee ID or their status, you know, I can understand and have that information that is only I need to look at. Of course, I have the ability to save this and share this particular view with other individuals within the organization. Going back to the actual org chart, standard org chart itself, one key thing that I wanted to kind of summarize here is, of course, the slicing and dicing allows you to actually look at dashboards as well. So we have the ability to see key metrics. So understanding the current total headcount, total managers, average span of controls. You have the ability to go ahead and create your own charts if you wanted to. So as an example, here I've created some sample charts where you see the ethnicity gap by pay management. What is my average span of control within the organization? Pay grade by business unit, gender, ethnicity. Depending on the exercise that you are doing, you have the ability to add any chart that you wanted to, whether it's an existing, you can create your own dashboard. And we even have the ability to integrate maps if you're dealing with multiple locations and if location data is critical for you as well. Going back to the org chart. Of course, here I've just been talking about the current baseline. But what really gets interesting is, of course, doing that analysis. So as a manager, a VP, let's say that I am Marie Johnson here, and I am trying to restructure with Hilda my organization. You'll notice that I've gone ahead and done a few different changes within the chart itself. So here, what you see, Marie Johnson's an organization. I can go ahead and see that there's a new billing manager that's been added. And all these individuals have been moved in under this particular structure. So how this happens is as simple as a drag and drop. I can go ahead and move Lehman here, Adam, under the billing manager if I wanted to in one snapshot. You'll notice that if I were to collapse, then the number actually increased from 5 to 6 here in terms of 6 direct reports. So the analytics all update according to this. But let's say that, oops, that was actually a mistake. I could go ahead and undo the particular change if I wanted to. Or I can start moving individuals as well. So let's say that I wanted to actually take Lehman here out. And I'm going to remove Lehman from this position. And I'm actually going to put Lehman into this position here. I can go, my keyboard cooperated. Sticky fingers. And I'm going to save this. So you'll notice that suddenly Lehman becomes the billing manager in terms of this position. Naturally, I'm doing this with a reasoning behind it. I'm trying to reduce the span of control of Marie Johnson, who had originally a span of control of 19. And I'm trying to reduce that to a reasonable size so that the organization structure can reflect that. What you're seeing here on the right-hand side are all the changes that are actually happening. And all of this would then be sent over to the ERP, the backend, to basically update the ERP to reflect the changes, should it go through an approval process. So naturally here, I'm actually collaborating with my org design specialist, Phil Hoffman, as well as my Oscar Pearson, which I introduced before on the org design lead. And I've only given Phil read access. In terms of this, naturally, security is all critical in terms of the various changes that you're doing from that aspect.
So Seb, we're
Yes,
not, we've got about 10 minutes left. We haven't had Q&A, we haven't talked about ROI, but I want to talk about one thing before we move on from this. In the real world, usually it's not that cut and dried. You have to export things and there's, the system might not work and that kind of thing. So are we able to get, because what ultimately you need at the end is you need a list of the 300 people and how they're moving. You don't need the 900 decisions before the 300 people. So as we have things we can export, to be able to have these discussions and make these decisions. I think if you cover that and go to ROI, we're probably in a good place.
Definitely. So what you're seeing here in terms of the actual changes, these are the changes that are being proposed. This would be your export out that you would be able to do. We also have the ability to basically export out in terms of, from a visual standpoint, you can export out the chart as is in terms of this aspect. But of course, from an Excel standpoint, we do have the ability to export out the listing and the filtered listing based on your needs. And you can go ahead and export those tables out to an Excel or CSV as well in terms of the changes, the actual changes themselves as well. So all of that is definitely possible. Yes, Gina.
Okay, terrific.
So-
Thank you. Okay, yeah, and I
and
do
thank
want
you for
to, yeah, I do want
keeping
to,
the-
I think the takeaways here are obviously the flexibility in the data and the drag and drop and, you know, trying to drive decisions, like you said, in scenarios. I asked all of our colleagues at Nakisa to talk about ROI and capability building, because I think most of us might not touch that all the time, you know, to actually, you know, bring a platform into the organization and try to move things forward. So wanted to make sure we touch on that, and then we can go to Q&A.
Happy to, Gina. Thank you very much for your questions. So as OD practitioners, as we kind of said, for those of you who were at the last conference, it's kind of a niche thing that requires, we need to help each other kind of bring the arguments to justify why optimizing talent across the structure, or optimizing the structure itself with the talent that goes in it, is important. And so what we tried to do here is separate the business benefits into 4 categories. One is tangible, which means you can calculate what it will bring back to the organization that you're trying to work with, or it's your own organization and you're an internal OD specialist. And the other one is the intangible benefits, which come with it, which are not negligible, especially because we're talking about humans here who are connected to work, that will bring 50% of value or 80% of value to their day-to-day, or 100%, depending on if they're in the right place at the right time. So I'll go through this quickly. So this is just meant, and it's also a discussion. I'd love to hear from all of you OD practitioners after, as to whether this resonates or not, or if you have brought other arguments or other benefits to the table when you're pitching your OD projects internally or as advisors. So just on the tangible, and the other dimension that I thought was interesting, having been through this many times, is there's the OD project itself, which is that short period of time when you're transforming the organization and coming out with recommendations that lead to more permanent changes. So, and that's usually in the CapEx budget. And as we've talked about a few times in these different forums, we need to be better at talking to finance about what the return is on these organizational changes are. So an OD project is like a period in time where we make a bunch of changes and then we go off and make them real, or we hand it off to the organization and HR goes and makes it real. The other one on the bottom left here is the long-term OpEx, which is the day-to-day changes that we recommend, or that managers from the organization through kind of more operational org design recommend. Like, I need an extra person in this role. I need more skill. I need more AI skills. I need more, all the dimensions that Seb explained. I need more of this. I need less of this. And so there's that day-to-day tweaking of the teams that generates benefits as well, and that we as OD practitioners can support. So quickly, for the tangible benefits on OD project itself, the project is just quicker, better, faster. You get to results quicker. You don't have humans calculating what the impacts of the org change that you're pitching or proposing to the organization are. So it's just a shorter time frame within the OD project itself. You might, need fewer consultants to help you. You might be able to do more internally because you've got some tech support that simulates all of the different scenarios that we talked about. And you have less kind of manual work that is very error prone. Myself, I was always kind of worried about, people kind of consolidating data on the org design and then finding out that at the wrong time that it wasn't accurate. In terms of the tangible benefits that can be calculated for the long term, quicker achievement of synergies, talent, and optimization targets. So you're better able to say, hey, we're going to need fewer of these types of people, but they're going to be exited from the organization, which is a reality of some of the work that we do 2 months earlier than if we had done this manually or done this in a slower process and with less reliability. Reduce business risks on HR data governance. We have quite a few of the organizations that we work with that are finding out that their HR data was erroneous in a lot of cases and not reliable, and therefore that creates all kinds of issues in terms of the collaboration that Seb was talking about for org design, more demonstrable ROI on the HRIS systems landscape. So these, we're talking about tech here. These are investments that go through a procurement process that get evaluated every year. And it's easier to justify the investment in the HRIS landscape if you're able to demonstrate return on investment for some of the features of it, right? So better stakeholder intangible for the project, better stakeholder engagement. It's much easier to convince an organization of the changes you're making if you have data to back it up. It's a much better collaboration with finance if you're able to bring numbers to the table. Quicker decision making, things happen faster, better. And increased transparency across the project, so it doesn't look like it's a laboratory behind I even remember personally putting paper on the wall and starting to put sticky notes as to who's going to report to who in my own OD practice. You don't need to disclose everything to everyone right off the bat, but you definitely need to be transparent about what you're trying to achieve, and that can help you that way.
We've got oh, thank you. We've got 2 minutes left for questions. I have a question for the group, though.
Sure.
If anybody has any experience in this space, what resonates here for you? If you touch this space, or if you'd like to, what are the things that on this list that particularly get your attention? You can put in the chat or go ahead and speak up. We'll open the rest of the call for just discussion. We got 5 more minutes.
Sounds good, Gina.
Data to show tangible benefits. That is one. I would add that to my list. I have some experience in this space. That is one of them, is to be able to compare the scenarios. And then, of course, what I'd add that as a precursor to that, I guess, is if you're in an organization with a history of acquisitions over 20 years from 30 different systems, there is some effort to get that data in a a form in which you can make it meaningful. Yeah, but otherwise that is a huge benefit.
That's an excellent comment. I don't know who made it. I can't quite see the chat, but it's a lot of the time we work with organizations that are just like, listen, we're buying a company, they're in Workday, we're in SuccessFactors. Just the pain of trying to consolidate that HR data, and then could be in another country, by the way, that has different labor laws and has different. So that's
talent assessment capabilities is a question. How you would do that, and then otherwise a positive affirmation on showing the value.
So
positive affirmation.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what type of talent data you're referring to. Definitely, most organizations are maintaining the performance data, so we're able to leverage that and showcase that. And of course, those are factors, of course, that you utilize in the decision process making. Even succession plans that may be in place already, those are all factors naturally that we leverage those data points already pre-existing, should the organization maintain them.
There's a one for you to add on your list here around having the live data enables planning and change more frequently than annual. So that's another affirmation. Yeah. Another question for the group around decision making and getting decision making cycles compressed. Again, I've got some experience in this space, and that has been a big win to be able to move things forward. Any comments or questions in that direction? I said exactly that, being able to rapid visualization in lots of different dimensions. So positive affirmation there. What else can anyone on our Nakisa team answer for you in terms of support you think you would need? Oh, optimal number of levels. They have that in there, right? You can put in there your optimal spans. Yeah.
Correct.
You can parameterize the reporting and in your scenarios that we showed you, kind of go, show me anytime red, yellow, green, if we're outside of the specific parameters for spans and layers. Of course, there's the pure structural component of it as well, which is important. Yeah.
For what you'll find, I think, for everyone, if you haven't experienced it yet, is an organization will have some idea, and then of course you could have different ideas of what the level would be, but you can program that in and be sure you're modeling to that. People analytics was a question, and job descriptions. I think we answered that early on. We talked about skills and capabilities. We could put something along those lines in. So maybe talk about that for a minute.
No, definitely. So this is where a lot of organizations try to align on the jobs and the job descriptions and the skills required for those. So we do have the ability to basically look at that information, and as you're doing the org designs, you'll be able to update the job descriptions, because as time changes and progress, those job descriptions change, and you need to adapt to that for sure.
Okay, terrific. I'm going to point out that, can you pop your contact information back up there so people can get in touch with you easily if they have more questions and want to follow up, and then I'll let Tanya wrap us up on the logistics. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope this was helpful. Appreciate any and all feedback. One more reminder, this is one of 3, and if we have good feedback and interest, then we will continue the series.
So I'll just real quick, the information I send out when we have the recordings posted will include contact information for Phil, Sebastian, and Henry, who helped us get this organized. And I'm happy to keep the line open for a little while longer if the 2 of you have time to answer a couple of the questions that have popped into the chat, if you would like to. I don't know if you can see it now that we stopped with the screen share. I know folks are going to have to start dropping because it is top of the hour, but if anybody wanted to stay on, if you felt like there was a question in there that you might be able to quickly respond to.
Happy to. There's quite a few, actually. I'm very...
We got down to the benchmarking and the quick moving labor market. You have a lot of affirmations there. Your last question is, they were comments mainly. The last question was test environments with dummy data, is the last one. You hadn't answered already.
Answer is yes. Yes. Of course, you want to simulate. You want to simulate, try before you buy, and do all that stuff. So for sure, most solutions will offer that capacity or proof of concept or a pilot. Yeah. And then otherwise, to recap, I mean, a couple of them comments around the benchmarking. You did answer that. You can take your benchmarks and you can program them in your sand layers, your whatever benchmarks you want. You can program them in. So there were a couple of questions on that. Also, yes.
Caught up. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to pause the recording then with a great appreciation for your team's time. The Nakisa folks were great to work with, and really put some time and energy into putting this together. Thank you, Phil and Sebastian, for being here today, and Gina for being the inspiration from the ODF board to bring this to our community. It's been a great ad, I think, for a lot of folks. There was definitely a lot of interest in people trying to make it today. So again, I will send out a notice to everyone who registered when the recording is available. I'll keep this line open if anybody wants to see if Phil or Sab can answer a quick question for them, but I'm just going to pause the recording for now and wish everyone a great day who isn't able to stay on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much on behalf of everyone. It's great. That's great. Thank you, Gina. Fantastic.